What is up, everybody? It's Dr. Vibe here, host and producer of the Dr. Vibe Show, the award winning Dr. Vibe Show. As always, I like to say you're blessed, highly favored, a magnet for miracles, and a solution for someone's problem. Do note that the Dr. Vibe Show is the home of Epic Conversations, and I'm the host of Epic Conversations. And I'm also a certified empowerment coach and president and CEO of Express Your Vibe Coaching and Communications. Excited as always to have friends, whether current friends or brand new friends, to come on the platform. And we're blessed and highly favored again to have Purusha from Spain on the line with us on Saturday morning here. And we're continuing our conversations about manhood subjects. And welcome, Purusha. How are things in Spain today?
Oh, they're beautiful and sunny. It's cold, and thank you for the introduction. It's really great here. We're blue sky, the almond blossoms coming out, and spring is already here in Spain. It's cold, but it's crisp and absolutely beautiful here.
Well, can you pass that some of that westward onto Toronto, and we'll certainly enjoy some of it also.
Yeah, I'll give a good blow, but we are a bit further south, I think. You know, I'm right down in the south, not far from Africa, really. So that helps.
Okay, all it's all good. Well, just for our brand new friends, they're watching us either live or on the replay. Can you give a little background about yourself?
Yeah, my name's Purusha, Sat Purusha, and I live in here in Spain. I'm British. I'm kind of retired now. I spent my life as a lighting designer, working on in the theatre and working on buildings such as theatres and museums and exterior lighting. But for the past, I don't know, getting on for 10 years, I've been writing about men and masculinity since I let go of my career. Um, Around that time, my first marriage came to an end. It was a 30-year marriage, and I was left on my own as a single man living in a one-bedroom flat, wondering where to go. And that made me interested in myself as a man and in men and what men do and how men deal with the question of relationships, which we're going to talk about. So I started, looking at it and investigating what was going on. And of course, I realized that I was an expert in one relationship and not really in the whole question. So I started writing about men. I started writing about masculinity. I have my own website called GrahamReedPhoenix.com. But I also write a lot for the Good Men Project under my original name, Graham Phoenix, and my name now, Sat Purusha. That's a name I adopted about 6 months ago at the summer solstice. And it really is an indication of the shift in my life, the shift down a route of spirituality and a route of, if you like, more peacefulness, more self-awareness, and I suppose more thinking about the world. I've lived in Spain for, about 6 years now. I own a house here with my second wife, and we have a great life here. We have a life in the sun, and we really enjoy ourselves. So it's great to be here. It's great to be talking to you again. I enjoyed our last conversation, and I'm looking forward to this one.
Absolutely. I look forward to all our conversations, even from the first time we were met digitally about 2 years ago via the Good Men Project. So
Yeah,
it's always good,
yeah.
enlightening, educating, entertaining, empowering. We try to cover all the E's, we try to cover them all in one shot. So this being February, which is Valentine's Day month, Valentine's Day, we thought it'd just be a really good time to delve into the whole area of men and relationships. And I'd like to have you give
Yeah.
some opening comments about men and relationships. What are your initial thoughts in this conversation?
Well, it's an interesting subject. There's a lot of men who are, let's say, they're quite frightened of relationships, or they don't quite understand relationships. Certainly, there's a lot of men who don't understand women well enough. and therefore find relationships very challenging. There's a point at which they expect women to be like them, straightforward, simple, and they're not. They're more complex, they're different. And so a lot of relationships fall apart or die, if you like, even if they don't fall apart, partly because men don't delve into them deeply enough. It's like all of us. When we first meet a woman or first meet a partner, a man, if that's what it is, you're kind of excited by the initial passion. You're excited by the initial excitement of being with someone, and that's great. And we can all deal with that, and we all have a great time with that. And then the puzzlement comes, and then the difficulties of how to keep it going, once that initial passion dies, how do you create a relationship? Because I think the two are different. And I think that's my major opening remark, is that initial excitement and the long-term issue of relationships are very different issues.
Great starting point. I want to maybe regress a little bit back a little bit before, in regards to relation with others. What about the whole aspect about men's relationship with themselves?
Oh, well, that's really, you put me on the spot there. That's really interesting, because that it starts for me with a very simple point, that if a man doesn't love himself, then I personally don't think he's capable of loving anyone else. And that's the real killer, because a lot of people, not just men, a lot of people think it's just about what you think or feel about the other person, and they forget themselves. It starts with you. It starts with you yourself, and before you even start dating. I mean, you go that far back. If you don't love yourself, if you don't respect yourself, if you don't think you're a worthy person, you're not going to get anywhere with another person, because believe you me, they are going to see through you. And women especially can see through any kind of mask you put up. So, I mean, if, for example, I don't really talk about dating, but if you go into dating with a mask of being a strong man and an alpha male, but you don't really like yourself, a woman's going to see through it, and nothing is going to come of it. And it's really critical. And later on, I think I'll talk about the subject of aloneness in a relationship, and that's associated with that. It's starting with looking at who you are. And so the major work you need to do in a relationship is on yourself, is who you are, who you want to be, and who you're pretending to be. And the latter you need to let go of, and you need to somehow equate who you want to be with who you are, and you need to balance those up.
I want to stay on that plane or that runway for a little bit in regards to men's relationship with themselves. Where are they getting the education on relations with themselves, or where are they not getting the education about relationships with themselves?
Oh, I think too much of the education that men have on relationships is about dating. And that's about something very different. And it's interesting because, I have never really dated a woman. I've had a wife and I've got a second wife. Both of those I met while working with them. So I met while just being with the person. And the problem is a lot of men don't do that. They actually look beyond the people who are around them, and they get into this dating game, and they get into this idea that they have to put on a front. They have to learn to be strong. They have to learn to be, aggressive alpha males, and women will fall at their feet. And what they've never had is the training, or, well, not even the training, is the insight in what it's like to be a woman. And that's one of the key insights that a man needs to understand. He needs to understand a woman. He needs to know how to love a woman. Now, there's a lot of men who don't have the male role models in their lives. Perhaps their father hasn't been there, or if he was, like my father, he was very much absent, working. And for example, just from my own experience, I was never taught about women. It was never explained to me. I was never, if you like, I never entered this sort of secret world of what a woman was like. I went to an all-boys school. I went to the Boy Scouts, which was all boys. And then at the age of 18, I went out in the world and went, what do I do? I've never really taught much to a woman. And that's typical. And what men do is that they go to the websites to look about dating, how to date a woman, how to be. And that doesn't really work. I've done and we could talk about it later, I did a blog post followed by a course, an online course called How to Love a Woman, where I look at the issues of what a man needs to do to get into that space of understanding and loving a woman. And I wrote 10 points, which has become a really popular blog post of mine. And we can go into that later, what the issues are. But it's things like that. There's not many places for men to go to. And that's one of the reasons I write about that. And I talk about relationships, because there's not enough help out there for men.
Well, it sounds like you have some things that you want to share on our conversation today. So certainly, wherever you want to start, let's make it happen.
Okay, so let me start with a simple explanation of relationships. I see a relationship, whether it's between a man and a woman or a man and a man or whatever, it doesn't really matter. The same situation applies. And there's a difference between what I call an A relationship and an H relationship. And that's the key critical driver that people need to understand. And it's very simple. The A relationship is a relationship of dependency. It's where two people lean on each other, where they're dependent on each other. And if one isn't there, the other one collapses and the relationship disappears. And then there's what I call an H relationship, which is where two people stand independent and strong with each other and have a relationship, which is the H, which is the bar going across, which is the power. And in that relationship, there's a term that I use called aloneness. And aloneness is nothing to do with being lonely. Aloneness is where a person can stand on their own and be powerful in their own right. When they love themselves, they honor themselves, they respect themselves. And if two people who are good at being alone get together, they have a strong relationship because they don't need the other person. They love the other person. They love being with the other person, but they don't need the other person to complete them. So that's the first thing. And that applies to both sides of a relationship. I think people need to be strong in themselves. And then, having done that, I think that a man particularly needs to understand, in a sense, how a woman works, or what a woman is looking for in a man, what a woman is looking for in a relationship. Because until a man understands that, it's difficult for him to provide the best relationship he can, but secondly, to be the man that the woman wants to be with. That's the key lesson I found. When I first met my wife, and I was in great persuasion mode. So I thought we'd be great together. I thought we'd have a great relationship. And I set about trying to persuade her. And she actually said to me, look, I don't need another friend. I don't need another girlfriend. Stop trying to persuade me. I can make up my own mind. And at the moment, there just isn't that kind of polarity between us. So I went away and thought about this and started working on myself. And I became the kind of man that she would want to be with. Now that's quite a critical aspect. It's, she as a woman wanted to be with a certain kind of man, and I wanted a certain kind of woman. Well, she was the woman I wanted to be with, but I wasn't being myself. And she wanted a man who was powerful and strong in himself. And so that's where I had to go. And so having gone there, I then started learning much more about a woman, much more about myself, about men, and how we can interact. And if you like, in a minute, I can go through, I've got 10 points.
Yeah, I just...
about how to love a woman.
And I appreciate that. I want to put parking lot right here, just put the brakes on before we continue on the path. It sounds like what you're saying is sometimes one of the facets that men are not paying attention to is listening.
Oh, yes, absolutely. Listening, and I would add presence.
What do you mean by presence?
But by presence, well, presence is going further than listening. Listening, but then adding the whole emotional aspect. So presence is being fully with another person. In this case, your partner, or your girlfriend, boyfriend. And presence is where nothing else is there. Okay, nothing else is important. Nothing else gets in the way of that moment or that time you spend with your partner. So, you're not thinking about work. You're not thinking about what emails you're getting. You're not looking at your phone. It's like, when I go out to dinner with my wife, which we do quite a lot, we sit there fully present with each other. We sit across the table and our attention is completely on the other person. And so then you can listen. But the listening is like a receptive thing. A presence is something you give out. You're able to look into the eyes of your partner and show that the rest of the world disappears and isn't there and isn't really important for you at that moment. Now, you can't be like that all the time, because there's times when you're at work or when you're focusing on the things you want to focus on, and that's okay, as long as when you're with your partner, when you're going to that point where you are talking to each other, relating to each other, you're totally present. And that's something that a lot of men lack. A lot of men lack the presence to just experience the other person, possibly even just be silent with them.
Very nice definition of presence. I really haven't too many times heard it broken down. That's really appreciative, really good.
And it's very difficult to do it. There's a very interesting exercise I did once, which was actually with me and another man. It was at a workshop on relationships. And me and this other man stood there and we were surrounded by women. And we had to stand there and look deeply into each other's eyes, which was very difficult with a man that, you don't necessarily know. And we had to look deeply into the other person's eyes. And when one of us sensed that the other person wasn't present, we hit them on the shoulder to go, I don't feel your presence. And we did that, and we got deeply present, not saying anything, not talking, just looking deeply into each other's eyes and learning what presence was. So at the end, we stopped, and the workshop leaders turned around to the women and said, what did you feel? And they were all going, Oh my God, that was amazing. That was so sexy, so powerful. And they were standing around going, this is what I want. I want a man to just be that with me. Just, they don't have to say anything, they don't have to do anything. Just that, to have a man just stand or sit or whatever. And then, of course, when you add to that the whole question, I'll go back to your original question, which was about listening. Listening is about a simple technique of not fixing, and that's the simple key. One of the key issues with men is they're fixers. They're able to solve things. That was me. I spent all my life as a designer, as a business owner, solving problems. I'm brilliant at solving problems. And, you know, when I used to talk to my wife, my first wife, you know, she used to bring up issues she had in the day or things that were going on. And I used to go, oh, well, that's easy, because if you do this, then so-and-so will relate to you different. And if you do that, and I thought I was helping. What in fact the truth is, all a woman wants is your attention. She doesn't want you to solve the problem or tell her what to do or say what went wrong or provide a solution. She wants you to be fully present and listen. And if she wants you to solve it, she'll ask you, and you kind of say, you know, you say the right things, you're compassionate, you're empathetic, you listen, but you don't go, oh, no, I know the answer. You did that wrong, you know, you should have done this. And that's not listening. So going back to what you were saying, listening is about, I used the phrase STFU, I don't know if you've heard of that, which is short for shut the fuck up, you know.
Okay.
And it's like, and that's what men need to do, is just shut up and listen, but with full presence.
Okay. Well, as we continue on, let's get back on the road and start going through your list of 10 points.
Okay, well, this is interesting. Oh, let me find it there on the scene. We've dealt with the first one. You brought that up very early on, which is start by loving yourself. You know, if you can't love yourself, then you don't know what love is. You don't know how to love. The second one is a real killer that so many men miss, which is tell her that you love her. So many men don't say, I love you. It's as simple as that. And if the woman says, you know, oh, do you love me? A man often replies, of course I do. What do you think? Why do you think I'm with you? Well, that's the killer insulting remark, because she doesn't know because you're not telling her. You know, and if you think this is silly, it's not. For a woman, it's every day. I love you. You know, my wife and I, when we wake up in the morning, we go, welcome to another day in paradise. And we talk about how much we love each other. And that's every day. And we keep saying it because to say that we still feel it. So that's critical that you actually say that. And keep saying it. There was I must tell you a little story of a guy I knew who met this woman, and he wanted to have a relationship with her. They were sitting over dinner, and he said to her, what are the things you would like to see in a relationship? So she started telling him, and he stopped her and said, do you mind if I just get my notebook out and make a note of these so I don't forget? She said, no, that's fine. So he wrote down the things she was saying. And one of them was, she said, I want to be told every day that I'm loved by my partner. And he said, okay. And from that day on, and they ended up having a relationship, they ended up getting married. In one way or another, he tells her every day that he loves her. He will give her a note, he will phone her up, he will tell her in person, and he never fails. He never misses that. So the third one
Can I just stop?
is
Can I just interrupt you
yeah,
for a
yeah.
second?
Yes, of course you can.
And I think added on to that is you may want if you think it's relevant, actually how important it is to know your partner's love language.
Oh, absolutely. Well, because that's about how you tell her you love her. The five love languages are very important. It's to know whether she wants to be told, whether she wants to be held, touched, whether she wants to be given presents, whether she wants you to do little jobs for her. And these are all versions of love language. I mean, sometimes with a woman, it seems strange, but doing the washing up after a meal is a really simple way of showing you love her. And some women, that's not their love language. They just want to be told, or they want you to go and they want you to hug her. My wife's a great hugger. She loves the physical contact. And, several times a day, we will just hug each other. And I'll just, for no reason at all, I'll go up to her and put my arms around her. So you need to find that out. You need to talk together and try and, you could look up, there's a lovely book by Chapman. I can't remember his first name.
Gary Chapman.
Gary Chapman, called The Five Love Languages, and it's well worth investigating.
Just before you go on, actually, there's one for couples, and there's actually 5 love languages specifically for men.
Oh, there are. I haven't seen that one.
Yes, there is. He did do edition specifically to educate men about love languages.
Yeah, because it can take a little while to find out what it is, and often the problem in a relationship is that two people have different love languages, and when they don't meet the other person's love language, and if both partners are doing that, frequently the relationship falls apart because both partners feel dissatisfied, feel unsatisfied with, because they feel that the other person doesn't love them. It's bizarre, but I know my wife loves going out to dinner. She loves being invited out to dinner. So I do it. We do it several times a week. Go out for lunch, go out for dinner, and we sit and talk. And that's part of the way she looks at it.
Okay, what's the next point on your list?
Well, it is why you love her, is what you love about her. And the key thing is, this is a very simple thing, but your love mustn't be conditional. It must be that you love her no matter what. So the key thing is that you can't start a relationship and then try and change the person. Well, she's okay, but if she would just dress differently or stop being so chaotic in the house, it would be all right. No, if she's chaotic, you need to love her. You need to love her chaos. If she's inspirational, that's fine. But if she's just straightforward, honest, simple woman, you need to love that about her. You need to worship her for what she does, what she is, and not try and turn her into something else. You also need to follow along with, as you change, she will change, and you need to grow that love with her, and you need to follow along. But don't try and change her, because when you meet a young woman, when you're young, and she may be very beautiful and sexy and slim, and maybe as you grow older, in your eyes she ceases to be so slim and beautiful. Well, of course, who of us stay young and lithe and beautiful? So you need to love who she is and not go, oh, it was fine in the past, you were slim, you're a bit fat now, or you're putting on a bit of weight, I don't like that. You have to love who she is.
Okay. Next point.
And then, the next point is about you. And this is about, we've kind of touched on it before, it's about living in your power. So you need to be yourself, and you need to feel your own power as a man. There's a lot of internal power in masculinity, in my view. You may not be strong, you may not be a physically dominant man, but you could still feel your own power and be fully in your own power. And that's what your partner wants to see. She wants to see you being not just yourself, but fully passionate about yourself, not dominant, not aggressive, but just you know that you are the best you can be. You're the best man that you can be, and you are exactly who you're meant to be and who you want to be. So within your soul, you've got that balance between who you want to be and who you are. And so there's no mask. There's nothing in the way. There's no pretense. And that, believe me, is probably the sexiest way a man can be, the most powerful a man can be for a woman.
I'm going to, before you go on with that, and I don't know if you're going to bring it up later, what aspect of men showing their vulnerability in a relationship comes up?
Oh, but that's very important. It's interesting, actually. That isn't one of my points, so it's a very good one. The vulnerability is about your strength. It's about your confidence and your willingness to show the depth of your emotional self to your partner. And that shows, apart from anything, apart from showing where you're able to go and how honest you are about yourself, it shows that you trust your partner. And that's an issue, a very, very important issue in any relationship, is that each of you trust the other person. And people shy back, people hold back from deep emotions with other people when they don't trust what the reaction's going to be. Maybe we remember being bullied as children, as boys at school, or laughed at for crying or whatever. So there's a tendency to hold back on the vulnerability because we're not sure how the other person's going to react, and we don't want to be laughed at or made a fool of. So vulnerability, generally you can only go there if you trust your partner, but going there shows that you do trust your partner, and that's an extreme form of love.
Excellent. Well, sorry to interrupt you there, but I thought it would be a good time to bring that up. Thanks for sharing on that aspect, because I know you didn't have it down as one of your 10 points, so you'll certainly continue on with your next point.
No, it's great. And interesting enough, I have 10 points, but a relationship is about everything in life.
Absolutely.
In the end, you can't pigeonhole it. It's about your whole way you live your life.
Absolutely.
So my next one is just don't live in the past.
Big. That's big. That's big.
That's big because, I don't know any relationship where there aren't problems, where there aren't difficulties. For example, I have a lot of anger in me. I've dealt with it, but I still have it there. And there's times when I get angry. And that could not be about my wife, but just about me, but it might still happen. And not living in the past is letting things go, letting differences go. When you may have a fight, you may have an argument, and when it's finished, when you've resolved it, you let it go. And the worst thing you can do is remind the other person later on, when they do something and you go, oh, well, that's just like you. You've always been like that. I remember when you told me X, Y, and Z, or you didn't trust me. Last year, I remember that time when you didn't trust me and you this and you that and you the next thing. And it all explodes again, but bigger. And the important thing is just to let that go. It doesn't matter who was right or who was wrong. What matters is the relationship and the love you have for each other and the willingness to let each other be who they are. So if there are difficulties, you allow the difficulties, resolve them, and let them go. You learn the lessons, and you show that you learn the lessons from the difficulties by moving on and living in the present, living right now. This is different from being present. It's just living in the moment now and looking at what's important.
Well, one of the things I always say to people is always make your future bigger than your past.
Absolutely, absolutely. And if possible, don't even look backwards. Yeah. Just let it go. Just let it go. The future is, of course, full of possibilities of, my wife and I have a saying with each other. We talk about something we're going to do or something that's going to happen. And one of us will say it and the other will say, and of course it's going to be, and the first person will go, beyond expectations. We always look that the future is going to be beyond anything we expect. It's going to be bigger. It's going to be wonderful.
Excellent. What's next point?
Yeah. This is a very simple one, but it's get to know her. There's a kind of classic scene of two men in a pub, in a bar, having a beer, and one of them's really miserable, and he's just had an argument with his wife, or she's just told him she doesn't like what he's doing, or whatever. And one man says to the other, my wife just doesn't understand me. And I always go, well, actually, you're completely wrong. When you say that, what you're really saying is, I don't understand my wife. It's in any situation of difficulty in a relationship, what most people do, and this unfortunately does apply to men and women, is that they blame the other person. Okay, they say, you don't understand me. You do this, you do that. You don't listen to me. You don't do what I want. And everything explodes because you're judging and criticizing the other person. If you change and you look at yourself, judge, if necessary, and criticize what you're doing, so that when you have a difficulty, you say, well, I realize that I've done this and you don't like that. And the way I talk to you is something that you don't like. And that's something that I need to do something about. So what you're showing is that you're understanding her, you're understanding your partner, you're understanding what she needs, what she likes, how she is as a person, and going back to before, what her love language is, who she is, and why you love her. And if you ever find yourself going, this isn't working because you don't understand me, you need to stop. And that has to be a sign that you have to stop and ask yourself, am I understanding what she's asking for? You may not like it. I can be in a situation where I don't like what my wife is saying to me, but I understand it. And therefore, I then will start to try and work it out. Why don't I like it? What is it in me that is going wrong that means I don't like what she's saying or what she's doing? Is it because I'm misunderstanding her, or is it because I'm getting it wrong, or whatever? So that's just a simple thing of having the patience and determination to get to know her and to get to know who she is and what she wants.
Excellent. Next up.
This is an exercise for two people to do together. And it's something that I do with my wife, and it's something that you need to do all the time, which is quite simply count your blessings. And that's looking at what you've achieved together. So it's looking at, it moves on from not living in the past, although the exception here is you can bring up the great things you've done in the past. That's absolutely allowed. But it's sitting going, what is wonderful about our relationship? What is amazing about each other? What do we do together? And my wife and I do that all the time. We still talk. We've been married for like 6 years, and we still talk about what it is in the other person that meant we came together, what it is that is so amazing in the life we have here together. You know, the house that we love living in together. We love living in Spain and sitting out on our front porch with a gin and tonic in the evening sun. And we talk about this all the time, and we talk about what's great in each other, and we talk about what's great in the relationship. And we don't do it just once. It's a constant part of re-enthusiasing, if you like, re-inspiring our relationship. It's reminding ourselves and reminding the other person of why you are together, what it is about, the relationship is about. And, you know, what you said, that the future is even bigger than now. This isn't the end, you know. Well, we've got a nice relationship, but, you know, that's it. You know, I don't know what we're going to do now. It's, you know, look at the next 30 years. It's going to be phenomenal. You know, next year I'm 70, and I fully expect to live into my at least mid-90s. So when we talk about it, we talk about another 20 odd years together. You know, we don't go, well, you know, I'm getting on for 70 and I'm getting towards the end of life and I don't know what we're going to do. And we go, isn't it going to be amazing? All the time we're going to have together, being with each other, looking after each other, enjoying each other's company.
Excellent. So just putting a bright future picture, painting a bright picture of the future.
Absolutely. And one that you're really excited to move into and move towards.
Excellent.
That's good. And it kind of like, that's why we're together, because of what's going to happen.
Yeah, absolutely. Looking forward to.
Yeah.
Nice.
And the next one is just a simple one of give love always. So whatever you're doing, show her love. This goes beyond what I said earlier about telling her that you love her. It's just giving love. That the energy that you give is one of love. When you sit down over breakfast in the morning, you know, just talk about what I just said about being together, about loving being together, and just it comes out of, it's unspoken. It's just the energy that you give out. I'm a great believer in energy. It is said that spoken word is only 7% of communication. That most communication is about body language, is about your eyes, is about the energy, just the way you exude what you feel. And if you put love into all of that, then you don't have to say anything. You'll just be there. You just sit with your partner. Or you might be the other side of the world, but just the energy you give over the phone or over Skype or whatever.
Well, I just want to, before you go on, I want to give a big shout out. There is a friend of ours that's watching this live who said, fantastic conversation. Barbara Abramson is shouting out saying this is a fantastic conversation. So right back at you. And Barbara is an executive editor at the Good Men Project, a website that both myself and Purusha contribute to. Purusha is an editor and a writer, and I provide a lot of digital video or digital conversational content to the Good Men Project. So thank you, Barbara, for that conversation hail. So it's appreciated. Much thanks. If you have any quick questions or any points, certainly type them into the comment section, and Purusha will certainly address them. But go on further, Purusha. I know you're winding down. I know your time is thin.
Yeah, thank you, Barbara. I appreciate that. There's two more left. One is just really, it's just pay attention to her all the time. You know, Tony Robbins, the motivational speaker, says in his when he's talking about relationships and he's talking about women, he says, look, men, you need to understand one thing. Women need attention all the fucking time. Every day, all the time. And he doesn't mean that in a derogatory way. He actually telling men, just pay attention to her. That he tells a story about when he's sitting, you know, working on something at his laptop, and his wife is sitting in the room. And the first time it happened, he was annoyed, but there was this little rolled up ball of paper came over and hit him in the head, and he went, "What?" And he almost sort of looked up and said, "What the hell are you doing?" And he stopped in time, and he realized she was just going, "You've been behind that computer for 2 hours and you haven't paid me any attention." And it was, and she was just going, you're not paying me any attention, and you don't need to do it very much. And what he would do is get up and go and give her a hug, or go and have a drink with her, a cup of tea and a chat. And I've had that with my wife. We have points during the day when we make a cup of tea and we have tea together, or we sit together and talk about things, and then we both go back to work. But it's that when you get into your working life hour after hour, and we do it at home, the attention can drift, and you need to remember that. Don't let it drift too far. My last one, sorry, go on.
No, go ahead. No, I didn't want to interrupt. Go ahead.
Well, the last one's is the most important one, and it brings in everything else. So it brings in all the other points, and it shows that you understand them, and that you're doing them, and that you know how important they are. And that is quite simply start afresh each day, every morning, as if it's the start of your relationship. Because if you remember, when I talked at the very beginning of the conversation, I said that the problem is that we have that excitement and that passion when we first meet someone, and then it kind of dies, and you become an old married couple who kind of don't really talk and all of that. But if you try and reinvigorate every morning that passion of being with another person, then things will never go wrong. They'll always be fixable. They'll always be curable, because you will maintain that deep, deep love for each other. So when I said earlier that in the morning, my wife and I say to each other, we often turn and go, welcome to another day in paradise. And that's what we see our relationship as, paradise. And it doesn't matter whether we're at home, we're in a hotel, or we're wherever. We're in paradise because we're together, because we have this relationship which we keep alive because we want to keep alive. It inspires us. And amazingly, well, perhaps not amazingly, but what we found is it inspires other people. And a lot of the work that we've both done on relationships with other people has been because people have seen how we are and said, I want some of that. How do you do that? And we talk about the things that we've just been talking about, but starting with, or finishing with, start afresh each day, every day, day after day. And don't make it repetitive. Don't make it like, oh, I've got to do that again today. It's because you want to, because you feel that burning passion to do that every day.
That's fantastic. That's a great ending off to our conversation, and really appreciate that. But so let me ask, and I know our time is running down, for men that need a start in any of these areas, what do you suggest? Like, what's a simple start?
A simple start is go to my website.
There you go.
GrahamReedPhoenix.com, where I've written a lot of articles on this. And my biggest or just Google how to love a woman. And just that phrase, how to love a woman, and you'll find that my post that I've just been through, my 10 points, are number one on Google. I get probably on that 300 to 400 hits a day.
Wow.
On that phrase.
Fantastic.
For men and women, to be fair, from both sides, looking for these answers. So just do that. Google how to love a woman. You'll find my site at number one. Go and read the post. There's other posts and it'll take you around. Also, Good Men Project.
Yes.
Good Men Project is constantly, not just for me, but for many, many of the writers, look under the sex and relationships section. And there's so much. I mean, there's actually there's just a post gone up. Where are we? I missed it. Yeah, 3 hours ago, the post went up called 4 Unique Ways to Say I Love You. 4 unique ways to say I love you. And the subtitle is Actions Sometimes Speak Louder Than These 3 Little Words. Now, I haven't read it. I don't know who wrote it, but that's typical of much of the work of the Writing on Good Men Project.
That's true. And I will just piggyback on what Graham has shared with us, that when it comes to men in this subject, many of us don't have a lot of training or examples from our days growing up, but work on progress, not perfection. Work on positive progress, not perfection. And believe it or not, another phrase that I'm learning to use now is simple requires discipline. So you have to be disciplined at this. So it's very, very important. Graham, Purusha, sorry. Like to thank you for sharing.
That's
with us.
Okay.
No, Purusha, thank you so much for you sharing as always. Before we let you leave, what are ways people can get in contact with you?
They can read my stuff on Good Men Project, either under Graham Phoenix or Sat Purusha. They can find me on Facebook under Sat Purusha, or Sat Purusha Writer is my page, and on Twitter as Sat Purusha. Those are the simple ways of getting in touch with me, or go to my website, which is still called GrahamReidPhoenix.com. That's GrahamReidPhoenix, GrahamReidPhoenix.com.
Well, Purusha, thank you so much for taking time in your positive, productive schedule to share another important subject of manhood. Pardon me, just an important subject, period. In regards to this, because there's a number of things that you shared here that are good for men and women. But we did come from a man's perspective. Go ahead.
Well, no, I just wanted to add a point on that many people will say, well, why are you focusing in on this on men? And one of the reasons is there's a lot of advice for women out there, a lot, and not enough for men.
Fully agreed, and that's why I do as many conversations as possible on my show in regards to manhood, because there isn't enough out there and there needs to be more. So for me, I am Dr. Vibe. I'm host and producer of the award-winning Dr. Vibe show. I am the home of Epic Conversations, and I host Epic Conversations. Thank you as always for listening, all the Vibers, I like to call you out there, that are either watching live or on the replay. If you want to touch base with me, the 3 best ways are at drvibe at Twitter, email address dr.vibe at the drvibeshow.com, and also the website www.drvibeshow.com. Many places you can find me online. Again, the website address. You can also find me at the Good Men Project, where I put up a new post almost every Tuesday, so check that out. Also like to say you can catch me at Stitcher Radio, iTunes, Google Play, iHeartRadio. There may be 1 or 2 other things out there. I'm also a certified empowerment coach and also a brand ambassador for Cuisine Noir magazine, which is the only online publication dedicated to African Americans in food, wine, and travel. I'd like to say a big shout out to Barbara Abramson from the Good Men Project for taking time out of her positive, productive schedule to see 2 of her, I guess, students in action. So we really appreciate that, and hail up to the Good Men Project for everything it does for manhood and for men worldwide. As always, I'd like to say you're blessed and highly favored. You're a magnet for miracles, and you're a solution for someone's problem. God bless, peace be well, keep the faith. And as I said earlier on, or I always like to say these days, sometimes you have to get smaller to get stronger. We will see Graham back at the beginning, first Saturday of next month. Until then, as I like to say, walk good.